Hello, my name is Charlotte, and welcome to Tuliverse, where I share stories for a white bird, white animal union. Today, I wanted to share a story about unification and my experience through the years of unification. It has been a very big part of my path to go out into the world and find people who have come into my field and called me to find them. And all of these people, most of these people, have one common thread between us. And that is, or has been, unification. Where as individuals we were building for the future, but many of these people have been in some way, I will say, responsible for unification, just because it's public knowledge by them. And the one problem, I guess you could call it, I have found has been the biggest impediment towards unification is the word greed. And some of these people, not everyone, but many of these people, wanted more. They wanted fame, they wanted more followers, they wanted to be the only one to say things, they wanted to be, sitting on a throne, they wanted to be more of everything. And they wanted more than, at times, what they carried and wanted more of what maybe I carried. And in 2023, sometime around the winter of 2022, 2023, I made a declaration. And I'll think more than twice about making a declaration again. But I made a declaration, and this declaration was, no one builds new on an old foundation. Maybe a week or two later, my creator, something I would call the voice of my creator, we can say it's me, an aspect of, consciousness, but it came as more of this like loving parental ness and said to me to take ownership of everything you have been given, everything you came to bring, everything you came to do, and everything you came to be. This was given to you from the voice of my creator. You must take ownership of it. And I thought about that for a while, and I wondered if this was kind of a new way of holding something sacred, and it seemed that it would be beneficial to the feminine to do that. And when I have, gone off in partnership to create in partnership or attempt to create in partnership with the masculine, I have, said to some of these men, or at least in this situation with this one person where we were creating this temple. And I said to this person, no one needs to put their name on this, as he was saying that he didn't think neither of us should put our names on it. And I said, no one needs to, I agree. But if you put your name on it, you must put my name on it as well, to maintain the balance and the truth of the creation of it was from two people, embodied masculine, embodied feminine. And I could see the wheels turning. And he said, well, I can put your name on a little stone next to this one standing stone. And then I said, well, where will your name be if you're going to put mine on a stone? And not long after, his name was in print without mine. But not only that, this phenomenon I have experienced over and over, where what I came to bring was given to another woman who didn't create it with a lesser, not lesser galactic tone, but not of the equal galactic tone that we both had. I'll say that because we are all equal, but not of at least my frequency as its creator. And so where it would lose life without me. And that this was given to another woman and her name was put in print because she had more followers, more notoriety. And what I brought was given to her. When I come into these situations where I am going to be in partnership, I ask from the beginning, what will happen if they use me, what I came to bring, if they use it all for themselves? What will happen? Because I want to know the specifics of what will happen if I can live with it. And then I can make a conscious choice about whether I want to engage in it or not. In 2024, as I had shared in a video called Two Birds, when I was staring through these red stargates and venturing into trying to meet a galactic tone with an embodied masculine, and when I saw myself in this doorway for the masculine, I didn't want to do it. I thought, this is going to put me in duality. I don't want to engage in gender duality. But I saw some really beautiful things and I thought, how hard can this be? And I made the decision to move forward. In 2024, when I was to share a little bit about myself to a group of men, the entire purpose for this was for exposure. It wasn't for them to use as their own in any way, shape, or form. What I had to share was about the feminine. And it was strictly for exposure and about exposure. I was not giving out free gifts to any of them to use for creation. And at this doorway, I became, and because of trying to meet this match of two birds, I became a symbol of the feminine. And as one of them said to me, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And at the end of it, I would agree he was correct. This was very challenging. And as much as I tried to impress upon them, to incorporate women into what they were doing, as this was about unification, in the beginning, they would not. And then when I let them know, well, you can't create without the feminine right now, embodied feminine. And then the only time that they brought any embodied feminine into this group was strictly usury. And I witnessed a shocking, to me it was very shocking, a blind eye policy of you could do anything to women and we will turn a blind eye and unify with you. In 2026, some things were supposed to have been turned over or shared with the feminine. And I would impress upon them that this wasn't when I noticed that they were making decisions not to do that. I impressed upon them, it isn't about creating a feminine era, but it is about, because we have been at the, down for so long, about taking a hand, lifting us up, raising us so we can settle and set next to one another for balance. I would say to them, I am this symbol of the feminine, and I had taken this on. This wasn't arrogance. There was no other woman there at the time, and I had agreed to take this on. I was given this role to be by Spirit, and I agreed to take it on because there were no other women there, and I agreed to do it until the rightful feminine came along. And I would say to them, some of them, I am a symbol of the feminine. What you do to me, you do to all daughters, wives, mothers, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, and so on. And I was sharing this with men who understood what I was talking about. Towards kind of around to the end of this, when there were 8 men, and there were only, the 8th only came for a short period of time, but I was playing 8 chess games with 8 different men in the protection of this future that I was holding, of this doorway, in protection of all things sacred that were feminine, and protecting what I was holding, protection for the children. And I learned a lot about the masculine and this energy of how it has worked in the last masculine era. that the masculine will play all ends of the field, both seen and unseen, known and unknown, all ends of the field. And they work very quickly. So if I shared something with them, by the time I got home, it was all over social media. The next day they had an event in their names, and then they would give it to other women to share as their own. Women I call kingmakers, or referred to them in 2024 as kingmakers. These groups of women, some of them who surrounded, or in some cases there was maybe one or two, but they surrounded these men. And these women, I would venture to say, did not know who they were or what they came to be. Otherwise, they would never have taken the position they would have taken to uphold these kingmakers, uphold these kings, and to maintain being a kingmaker. There were, whenever I would kind of challenge these men on, making sure that they said what I came to bring in my name as being a symbol of the feminine, that this was very much challenged in this group with women. They would want these men to know what I said and to use it for themselves. And the women surrounding some of these men, who these, kingmakers, knew how some of these men were, but they also turned a blind eye to what they knew they were doing because they needed to maintain a king, to be given identity or whatever they were needing from them. And for many years, I have said to some of these people, if you need to be king or queen, be it. If this is who you want to be and who you need to be it. Why are you going to compete with me for something I don't want to be? Or would never compete with you for something that you feel you need to be for yourself. But I was still competed for. And these women would want to know what I said. And at the same time, they would be like, but no one could have this information or be able to create these things but our king. And so they would rally around the king, but still want to know what I was saying to the masculine. And they would want to be given these things. Well, we love her ideas. We love her creativity. We love this. Can't we use it? You're the king. You're the king. And then finally, in these instances and this phenomenon, the king would say, well, you're right. We will take her and I will dole these things out to you and we will utilize her or use her as in this way. It's a strange phenomena to witness. And in 2024, I witnessed a conscious, physically conscious, concerted effort by these men to, I would say, sever the future, which is the feminine, and sever the future from the present and past, and want to utilize the feminine to feminize themselves, to use as their own for a conscious agenda of creating another masculine era. This was a conscious agenda. And if there was ever a time to be victorious in exiting chess games, losing, when this was over, this year was over, 125-25, this was the time. But these men were given ample time this entire year to return to the feminine what they were using as their own. And none of them did. They were given 40 days enveloping 125-25 as this extended period to return it to the feminine, speak the names of the women they had received information from, wisdom, and were using as their own. But they never did. And I want to say that the hearts of many women were broken in 2024 and left a lot of us feeling very helpless. In my video about two birds, when I share about the minds of men ascending with the full breath of the feminine, what I mean by that is the embodied feminine. And this is how this new era is protected. We must be in balance. The masculine, their minds ascend, but only by finding balance with the living, breathing, embodied women. At the end of 2024, as a symbol, I saw myself in two images that made me realize some things. One, I was lying on top of a sarcophagus in the dark in a pyramid. And these men were standing around me and they were taking turns breathing in my breath, my exhalations. But this was not reciprocal. I was not giving, was not reciprocal. And then I saw myself as the center figure in the Last Supper with these men surrounding me with a fork in one hand and a knife in the other and foaming at the mouth and looking at me, like growling. And I was like, wow, this is was very intense imagery and to see, and very upsetting actually, as this symbol. And I didn't see these images because of who I am spiritually or anything that has to do with me spiritually. It was to show me about the masculine at this moment towards the feminine, their minds where they are towards the feminine. And it is only because of this protection, and when I heard that the minds of men, embodied masculine, could not ascend without the full breath of embodied feminine. And because of these failings in 2024, that the minds of the masculine were placed under quarantine. And this quarantine is going to last a very long time. I worked extremely hard. This was life or death initiation. I gave my whole heart into finding balance in 2024. But I understand how long it will take for balance to be made because of these kings and because of the women who surround them as king makers. How is this balance met? I've heard recently that it comes only from within the mind first. But this is a very masculine way of looking at it. Anytime I've tried to change anything from within my mind, it's a mental game. Only when I have taken action in the physical will it change my heart first and then change my mind. And this is about the ascension of the minds of men, being able to actually see the feminine, embodied feminine, as sacred life givers. Only when they can see this and take action to change towards the embodied feminine, women, daughters, mothers, wives, aunts, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, and so on. Only when they take action towards the embodied feminine will their minds ascend. This is what I've heard. This is what I believe. And this is what I'm sharing. The sad part of this is that these kingmakers will watch these men dig a hole for themselves, because in the beginning they have the clarity and the consciousness, and to know they're feeling like not good about making this decision and may want to reach out to me to make some kind of apology or clarification or connection. But the kingmakers will never allow them to do that. They need their king, and they need to be fed identity, purpose. Because they have not found it within themselves. And so I made the decision to, as crippling as it can be, to look at continuing to take a path of isolation while what I came to bring has been used and utilized for unification. I'm going to take it because I have always been willing to stand alone to do what is right for the vulnerable, for the innocent. And I always will. And I understand the need to join with other people, but not at the expense of others. And while these people are out unifying and gathering the people, I will never be invited to this kind of selective unification. Because if I show up, I'm going to open my mouth and share what came from me, and it will expose this. I will do it when the time is right. And it is a purpose for my YouTube channel. To be able to speak what comes from me so others can see where there is mimicry. With this ever widening circle of people, of men, embodied masculine, I unaffectionately call the prophecy mafia, and less affectionately call morons. And while that may sound very derogatory, if you have walked a mile in my shoe in 2024, you will understand. And there is something about this word, morons, the tone, the sound in the mouth that fits so perfectly with this group, this expression. It matches them perfectly and feels so good for me to say. And if you break the word down, more-ons, more-ons, please, more-ons, please. But speaking the truth and the names of the women. If you want to write history anew, you write the names of the women. You speak them and you remove yourself. There is a difference between being inspired and being a thief. Inspiration involves reciprocity. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else is theft. And when you come here for all of this for children and you use it as your own, you are a thief of children. This may sound very firm, and it is, and it's time for the women. It was our time in 2024. Little girls, young women, women of all ages. It was our time in 2024. This is when it began. There's no celebration of it. There's no nothing. In the beginning of this year, I said, okay, if it's too much for you, I don't have any followers, I've never achieved anything, I'm too white, I'm too blonde, I'm too young, I'm too female. If it's too much for you to unify with me, we can do it. Make an invisible alliance. No one needs to know. For humanity. No one I found was willing to stand on their own to do what was right. Men, women. My takeaway from all of this is a symbol of the feminine. It's to take this little piece of paper all of this was written on, and start anew for the feminine. I take a stand for the feminine, to claim this new era. It is our time. It is our time during this time where the minds of men are under quarantine until they take action towards the feminine to do what's right. And that includes their kingmakers. From what I saw in 2024 was 80-90% of women putting money into this to create a new world. 80-90% feminine, wanting, driving this new world, and giving and supporting these men financially and with your attention, sitting in the audience, thousands. Nothing is really spoken in this sacred time for the feminine. If you took your money and your dollars and put it towards the projects of women, the feminine, girls, young girls, older women, elders, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And I have made my decision to take a stand and unify with other women for the protection of this new era and for the children. And for any woman watching this, if you feel called, please share. Not for me, but for you, for us, for our time. Speak your words. Write your name. I have given up on these men, and I believe that their names will be written in the history books as those who came to sever the future, the feminine, from the present and past, and sell a new world where these women are paying tickets. This is not about duality. This has always been about prophecy, and this is not a prophecy this is not my prophecy. I don't claim this, but this is cross-cultural prophecy that because the men don't take a stand, the masculine, the women rise up and take a stand for the protection of each other, our children, and our earth. And hopefully our names will be written for balance. It will not come for some time. And although choices can be made, I won't wait. And that is my story of unification and my experience of where we are in this process of unifying. from the flight of the full breath of the embodied feminine. This song, this call, is for you. Until our next story time, take care.